Dave, we're just finishing configuring KU to comm. Matter of fact, I think we're done. You should be able to take...
We have it, Charlie, and that is just spectacular. We see the station clearly through the pedals of the docking ring.
This is Mission Control Houston. As the Shuttle Atlantis and the Mir space station pass across the southern tip of South America, our first views of the shuttle is taken from the Mir and relayed to the United States.
We have video from the Mir spacecraft looking at you.
On the left side, the orbiter docking system's docking ring. At the bottom of the picture, at the top, is the Crystal module's docking port. The picture on the right side shows the centerline camera view out of the orbiter docking system. Flight controllers here standing by for contact and capture of the two vehicles against one another.
Houston, Atlantis, we have capture.
Copy, capture. We concur. We have a good image of you. Your go to open the shuttle hatch.
Okay, you're good.
A lot easier without gravity.
Go for main engine start.
We have a go for main engine start. Mission and liftoff of the Scuttlestone, celebrating its 25th birthday by racking up science and supplies to the space station.
The solid rocket boosters blew away.
Columbia, Houston, UHF comm check. Roger, roll.
With the Hubble Space Telescope orbiting the Earth 540 kilometers over its surface as a useless, multi-billion-dollar shiny piece of scrap metal, NASA would launch their rescue attempt on the 2nd of December, 1993. STS-61, the fifth flight of the shuttle Endeavour, 3 months after Hubble had been initially launched, took 7 astronauts on one of the most work-heavy missions the shuttle ever undertook. After some initial delays and eventual launch, Endeavour performed a series of burns on the mission's second day that would allow it to close in on Hubble at a rate of around 60 nautical miles. In the meantime, the crew checked their payload, checked the shuttle's robotic arm, and checked their spacesuits before getting some sleep. At the end of the flight day, Endeavour was about 190 nautical miles behind Hubble and closing. The third day was spent examining Hubble from afar using binoculars, as several more precise burns brought the shuttle into a proper intercept trajectory. Commander Dick Covey took over for the final maneuvers that brought Endeavour within 30 feet of the telescope, and it was then captured by the robotic arm, controlled by mission specialist Claude Nicollier.
The orbiter versus the telescope in such a position that I could grab it. The remote manipulator system had been already put in the poised for capture position about an hour before the final grapple. And this is the final grapple. We saw the target that I was using in order to position the end effector on the telescope and grab it and rigidize it.
It was then brought into the payload bay and examined further as the astronauts prepared for the first spacewalk the next day. Story Musgrave and Jeffrey Hoffman performed the first repairs on day 4 with the assistance of the robotic arm that could reposition the telescope in the bay as needed. They spent 7 hours in their suits, working on the telescope to replace various fuses, gyroscopes, and other electrical components. At the end of the day, the telescope's solar arrays were rolled up and retracted in preparation for the next spacewalk. You may have noticed one of those solar arrays on the telescope looking a little bit wonky. That's because it is. The second spacewalk was spent replacing not just the kinked array, but both of them, by astronauts Thomas Akers and Catherine Thornton. On day 3, Hoffman installed a new camera named the Wide Field and Planetary Camera, and on day 4, the spherical aberration was finally corrected with the installation of the Corrective Optics Space Telescope Axial Replacement. Taking nearly another 7 hours, this spacewalk would turn Hubble images from this into this. And of course, I think a montage of some of Hubble's most striking images is the most fitting thanks I can give to the astronauts of STS-61. The Mir Space Station, operating in low Earth orbit by the Soviet Union and later the Russian Federation from 1986 until 2001. It was the first modular space station and held every single record achievement a space station possibly could until the ISS would surpass most of them 20 years later. In many ways, the Mir could be seen as a rough draft for the ISS, as the Russian station had many faults and suffered numerous accidents throughout its career. It would finally be emptied of crew and deorbited, burning up in Earth's atmosphere in 2001, but before it did, it would see a number of visits from the NASA Space Shuttle. The first was STS-61 in 1995, which carried 5 astronauts and 1 cosmonaut into orbit on an intercept trajectory with the Mir. It was essentially a trial run for a later mission, analyzing all the mechanics associated with the 2 spacecraft working together. It performed a rendezvous and various tests communicating between cosmonauts and astronauts to figure out how everything was to work if the shuttle were to dock. The mission served as an important symbol of US-Russian cooperation in the wake of the Cold War, and during the closest approach of only 36 feet, Commander James Weatherby stated,
"Ships closer together. We are bringing our nations closer together. The next time we approach, we will shake your hand, and together we will lead our world into the next millennium."
To this, cosmonaut Alexander Viktorenko responded, "We are one. We are human." STS-71 launched Shuttle Atlantis into space on the 27th of June, the same year, carrying 5 astronauts and 2 cosmonauts. It was launched into the lowest orbit of an orbiter ever, in order to quickly play catch-up and reach the Mir space station on the 29th of June. Docking occurred at 9 a.m. without any real difficulties, thanks to skillful piloting by Commander Robert Gibson and careful communication between the 2 nations' space agencies. When docked, Atlantis and Mir formed the largest spacecraft at the time, with a total mass of around 225 metric tons. For 5 days, the mixed crews performed various experiments and made exchanges of supplies and crew, leaving the 2 astronauts that had brought aboard and carrying 3 more back. On July 4th, following a farewell ceremony, the shuttle undocked and returned all 8 crew members safely to the Kennedy Space Center. This is the second set of glory days in the Space Shuttle's history, when international politics were friendly and allowed for science to progress between 2 nations at once. We could all benefit from the lessons learned during this time.
Main gear touchdown. The drag chute being deployed by pilot Charlie Precourt, and nose gear touchdown. Atlantis rolling out on runway 15 at the Kennedy Space Center to complete a 4.1 million mile mission and the first docking with the Russian space station Mir.
If you like this video, please give it a like. If you want to see more, please subscribe to my channel, which is DeadKennedyInSpace. If you want to support me further, consider donating on Patreon or purchasing some of my work through Amazon or Teespring. Thank you, and I'll see you over the curve, Space Cowboys.
Lived there, on the mote of dust, suspended in a sunbeam, in a vast cosmic arena.